The medical bay of the Zephyra Coalition flagship hummed with concern as Chief Medical Officer Zilrath stared at the human specimen before her. The creature calling itself Marcus Chen sat upright on the examination platform, pressing a cloth against a deep gash on his forearm that had occurred during the recent boarding action. "You should be in regenerative stasis," Zilrath clicked, her translator converting her distress into standard galactic common. "That laceration has severed multiple tissue layers. Without proper cellular reconstruction, you will experience permanent damage." Marcus looked at her with what she was learning to recognize as human amusement. "It's just a scratch, Doc. I've had worse." Zilrath's sensory stalks quivered in disbelief. The injury database indicated this human had sustained 47 separate wounds. In the past 3 cycles alone, 47. Any other species in the coalition would have required extensive medical intervention and months of recovery. Yet here sat Marcus, treating a wound that should have incapacitated him as a mere inconvenience. "I don't understand," she admitted, reviewing his biological scans for the dozenth time. "Your species lacks the regenerative cellular structure of the Threnody. You have no crystalline backup systems like the Vex. Your genetic code contains no redundancy protocols whatsoever. By all biological logic, you should be extinct." Marcus shrugged his shoulders, another peculiar human gesture. "We just heal, I guess. Give it a week, maybe 2, and this'll be a scar. Give it a few months and the scar might fade too." "That's impossible." Zilrath pulled up the cellular imaging from his previous injuries. What she saw defied every principle of xenobiology she had studied in her 4 decades of practice. Where the human had been wounded before, new tissue had simply grown, not regenerated from a stored template, not reconstructed by nanites but grown, spontaneously, aggressively. The human body, she realized with growing horror, responded to damage by essentially attacking itself. It flooded wounds with excess cells, built up scar tissue like armor plating, and forcibly knitted flesh back together through what could only be described as biological stubbornness. "Your inflammatory response is essentially a controlled autoimmune reaction," she muttered, her scientific fascination overriding her bedside manner. "You're triggering localized cellular warfare at the wound site. The collateral damage alone should kill us." "Yeah, I've heard that before," Marcus interrupted. "Look, Doc, I appreciate the concern, but I've got a briefing in 20 minutes. Can you just slap some of that gel stuff on it and wrap it up?" Zilrath prepared the synthetic tissue adhesive with trembling appendages. As she applied it to the wound, she watched in real time as Marcus's blood began clotting, his platelets swarming the injury site like microscopic soldiers fortifying a breach in the wall. "The human didn't even flinch. Does it not cause pain?" she asked. "Oh, it hurts like hell," Marcus confirmed cheerfully. "But that's kind of the point, isn't it? Pain tells you something's wrong so you can fix it or protect it. Then your body does its thing, and eventually you're good to go." The casualness with which he discussed ongoing tissue damage made Zilrath's internal organs clench. She finished bandaging the wound and stepped back, consulting her data pad. "According to your medical history, you've broken 17 bones, torn 8 ligaments, suffered 3 concussions, and experienced second-degree burns across 12% of your body surface area, all within the past 2 standard years." "Sounds about right for infantry work," Marcus agreed. "And yet you continue to function. You continue to fight." Zilrath's voice carried a note of something between awe and terror. "Your species doesn't heal wounds properly. You just persist. You force your bodies to rebuild through sheer metabolic aggression." Marcus stood, testing the bandage with a flex of his arm. "I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds pretty metal. But honestly, Doc, it's just what we do. Humans are really good at 2 things. Being stubborn and refusing to die when we're supposed to." He headed toward the exit, then paused and turned back. "Oh, and Doc, that speech you gave about humans being biologically impossible, you should meet Jenkins from engineering. Guy survived a hull breach, explosive decompression, and frostbite, and he was back on duty in 6 weeks. Doctors said he'd never walk again. Now he runs marathons for fun." After Marcus left, Zilrath sat in silence, processing what she had learned. She pulled up the complete medical database for the human contingent aboard the flagship. 217 humans with a collective total of over 3,000 documented injuries in the past year alone. And yet their operational efficiency rating remained at 94%. They didn't heal. Not really. They simply refused to accept damage as permanent. Their bodies staged violent cellular rebellions against injury, flooding wounds with excess tissue, building fortress walls of scar material, and aggressively multiplying cells until the damage was buried under layers of angry new flesh. It was grotesque. It was inefficient. It was completely unsustainable by any rational biological standard. It was also working. Silrath began composing her report to the Coalition Medical Council, knowing they would never believe her without the supporting data. Humans, she typed, do not possess superior healing capabilities. They possess something far more disturbing: the biological capacity to simply refuse to acknowledge the finality of injury. Their bodies respond to damage not with elegant regeneration, but with what can only be described as spite-driven cellular aggression. She paused, considering how to phrase her conclusion. Finally, she added, "Recommend immediate revision of combat casualty predictions for human forces. Previous models assumed logical biological limitations. This assumption has proven catastrophically incorrect. Humans do not heal. They simply get angry and grow new flesh until the problem is buried." The report filed. Silrath leaned back in her chair and contemplated the terrifying resilience of the species that had somehow bullied their way off their death world and into the stars. No wonder they had survived. How could the universe kill something that simply refused to stay damaged? In the corridor outside, Marcus Chen was already halfway to his briefing, the wound on his arm already beginning its violent, stubborn, utterly human process of forced recovery. Just another day of refusing to be broken.